Alright, number 6 on assignment 31, guided practice, is a little tricky. You guys know how to add and subtract decimals by now. We're just reviewing adding and subtracting decimals. What's different with this is you can see that the 5.37 is a negative. So we're really going to have to think carefully on this problem. Well, what you do know from addition of integers is that you look at the two whole numbers, and you have a negative 5 and a 16. You know that you have more positives, so you know the answer is going to be positive. Now, what did we do in the past? Well, we looked at the difference between the greater absolute value and the smaller absolute value. So what we're going to do here is actually, let's take which one's greater, which would be the 16.45. We know the answer is going to be positive at the end. I'm going to take the 16.45 or $16.45 and put it over the $5.37. Think of it as money again. Well, you owe someone $5.37. You have $16.45, so you're going to give them the $5.37. So you're going to take it away from what you already have. Well, you have to do a little subtraction. Remember how to borrow. And real quick, most important thing with decimals is to remember when we're adding and subtracting, you line up the decimals. You line up the decimal point and all the place values. And then you are going to bring down your decimal. You need to bring the decimal down, straight down. It's not the same with multiplication and division. If you look, all my decimals are lined up, and this is how it should be for addition and subtraction. Alright, let's move on to number 7. Number 7 is very similar, except what we'll see here is that the decimals don't look exactly like money, but that's okay because we can still add them. There's no negatives. There's no negative symbols, so we know we just can start with the 4.321 and add it to the 52.62. But again, when you're rewriting this, line up your decimals. Now, if you look carefully, what I've done is I've added zeros at the ends of each number. This will help when we go to subtraction, for sure. But these zeros, they don't change the value. They don't change the value. So we can add those zeros at the end to make sure all of our place values are nice, neat, and organized. So now we just add. Very simple. And 1. Oh, also bring down your decimal right away. Forgot to tell you that. Again, bringing down your decimal right away is the most important thing when we add and subtract decimals. That's the most common mistake. So, let's move on to number 8. Now, number 8 I read, and I actually did this problem wrong. So, I'm going to have to go back later and edit it. So actually I'll do it right now. I'll edit it right now. What the problem says is you deposited $69.88. So I wrote this wrong. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it right now. And I'm going to rewrite it as an equation. What we have to do is think about, what did we start with? How much money did we start with? We did not start with this. And that's where I made my mistake. I didn't read it carefully enough. We did not start with the 69 because that was added or deposited. So we don't know what we started with, so I'm going to start the equation with an x. And what did we add to that? Well, we added $69.88. And in the end, what did we have? Well, we know at the end of the day, we had $9,825. Now what are we going to do? Well, we know how to do this. This is a little bit sloppy. So what I will do is rewrite it so it's a little bit neater, but we need to subtract, get x by itself, so we're going to subtract this 69.88. Goodbye, 69.88. You turned into 0. Now, let's look carefully at this $9,825. This is where people make big mistakes. A lot of times they want to just take this 69.88, write it here, put their decimal, bring your decimal down, and subtract. That is so wrong. So let me take that away. And what we need to do is figure out, where's the decimal on the $9,825. Well, the decimal would be right here. It would be right here next to the 5. So what I'm going to do is rewrite this. 9,825 with a decimal. I'm running out of room here, so bear with me. With the decimal, let's add 2 zeros. Then we're going to do the same here. We're going to bring the 69, line up your decimal again, and 88. We take that and we subtract. Now you guys know how to subtract. That's how you do the problem. You guys can get the answer on your own. And this would be your answer. $9,755.12 is what we started with, and I'm going to label it as dollars. Alright, number 9. Well, we started with $657. We withdrew, and withdrew means that we subtract. So we're going to subtract the $35, or $356.45. Now, you may notice that right off the bat I put a decimal right here. That's important. It didn't show it as a decimal in the word problem, but if you put it there right away, you're going to make less mistakes. What we're going to do is rewrite this. When you rewrite it, remember, start with lining up your decimals. Most important, addition, subtraction. Line up your decimals. So, now we're going to have to do a little borrowing to answer it. It's subtraction, but this should be pretty simple. You guys know how to borrow. Also remember that the decimal comes straight down. Bring the decimal straight down, and here you go. And there's your answer. That is what we had at the end of the problem. Alright, number 10 is very simple. Just write it. I put a box around it because I'm going to rewrite it. What's the most important thing when we're adding, subtracting decimals? Well, when we rewrite it, you need to make sure you line up the decimal points. So start by looking at your decimal points and watch how I rewrite it. Just so you know, before I even write the second number below, I put the decimal point, and then I work to the left and then back to the right. So I'm going to put the 7 in the 1s column because that's where it goes. It goes under the 8. Now I also can add these imaginary zeros. It doesn't change the number, but it's going to help me when I need to subtract and borrow. Next thing you do is borrow. And then just subtract. Bring down your decimal, straight down with addition, subtraction. I have to borrow again. And there you go, there's your answer. Number 11, now we're turning it into a linear equation, which has the letter or a variable. And you guys know exactly how to solve this. Well, what do we have to do? We have to get a by itself, so we do the opposite of addition, which is subtraction. Very simple. So start with that. Subtract 1.7 from this side, and you're going to do the same thing to the other side. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. But when we rewrite this, make sure that you line up the decimal point. So I put the decimal first, then the 1 in the 1s column, and then the 7 in the 10ths column. And I add my zeros. When you add 0, you're adding nothing. Then you can easily subtract. You might have to borrow. What you do, bring down your decimal straight down. And there you have it. Very simple, as long as you line up your decimal point. Last one, number 12, same thing. What I want you to do is look at this very carefully though. We're working with decimals. We know we have to get x by itself. But the problem is the 22. I don't see a decimal. So where can we put the decimal? You just put it at the very end. That's like saying $22. And you would say $22 and, the decimal means and, 0 cents. So let's just put the decimal there right away. I didn't do it, but there it is. Now you can easily add. And there you have it. Once again, make sure that 22 has a decimal at the end. Don't put the decimal in the middle. Don't put the decimal at the beginning. Put the decimal all the way to the right side. Any questions? Alright, well, thank you for doing assignment 31, guided practice. Now you can move on to the independent practice on your own. You should have no problem. If you do, you can look back at the video or look back at the work you just wrote down. Have a great day. The choice is yours.